pen go?
Nathan, you can go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So welcome everyone. I'm going to call this meeting to order. We do have regrets from a number of members, including Rob Adlam, Peter Bertle, Bev Gerner, and Councillor Wall. And the clerk has taken the roll call of the remaining individuals. So as this has been our new normal with these Zoom meetings, I just like to go through a couple things to remind people. All members should remain muted when they're not speaking to reduce the feedback. All webcams must be on at all times, otherwise it's like you're not present. Staff will be requested to join the video should they need to answer questions. Persons who have registered for this meeting and who are speaking to applications will be brought into the meeting upon introduction of the item. Any member of the Heritage Committee wishing to indicate that they will speak to this item should use the raise hand icon. In the event that a connection or service interruption occurs that affects the quorum, we may recess for up to 15 minutes to regain quorum. If that doesn't happen, then we adjourn the meeting, and all members of the Heritage Committee participating via online video conference will vote by a physical show of hands, and the chair will indicate to leave your hands raised until they have determined the result of the vote. And thank you for your patience as we navigate through this new pathway. So that being said, we move on to item 2 on our agenda, which is declarations of conflicts of interest. If you have a conflict of interest, I would ask you to declare such conflict now. Seeing none, we'll move on to delegations. There are no delegations for tonight. And item 4 is items for consideration. We have 4.1, a proposed alteration to 242 Brant Ave under the Ontario Heritage Act. I would call on Paul Gazik to provide his presentation. As a reminder, you will have 10 minutes inclusive of questions. And I'll get my timer ready.
Hello?
Hello, go ahead.
Hello. Yeah, this is Paul Gazik, and yeah, I'm just following up on my application for renovations to the 2-story walkout of my house on Brant Ave. I've submitted, I work with Patrick at the City Planning Department on, answering his questions as I went through the process. And he suggested that I participate in the meeting to answer any outstanding questions regarding the renovations.
Okay, do you have anything else with your presentation?
I really hadn't prepared a presentation. I was just basically asked to make myself available in the event there's any questions from any of the committee members.
Yep, sure.
Because what I'm doing is I'm seeking approval of the plans to go ahead with the work. I don't know. My house was built in 1897. I've been in the house for about 14 years. There's been numerous renovations done to the house, and I'm trying to restore the front porch to make it as close to what it originally was as possible. I've done some research. There's 3 sister houses to my house that were built by the same builder with the same floor plan, all within a couple of years of each other. And mine's the only one that basically has something that's even close to what was originally there. So I don't know, to make a long story short, there's a couple of code issues. Apparently it requires 3 Sano tubes. Right now I have no supports going into the ground at all. They're just sitting on top. There was a cement foundation that at some point in time was built over with chicken wire and flagstone. which is too high, and that's not to code. And the railing of the walkout portion of the porch, which is now clad in white siding, which again is not period, is not high enough to meet the current code. So the solution was either to make the walkout portion approximately a foot taller, or to maintain the scale of the walkout portion of the porch and put a railing, which would comply with code and would allow me to maintain the scale of the original porch. My contractor is, I don't know if that's important, is Rob Coleman. I've been working, excuse me, very closely with him. He tells me that it's kind of hard to get out. I can't walk on it out on the porch right now because it's not safe. But what the goal is to maintain everything above the top of the current white railing in terms of the brackets and the fascia board. Jack it up, put in the new posts, which have to be into the ground, and then put a stamped concrete front step to replace the current step, again, that meets code in terms of height.
Okay.
So basically, my goal, my ideal scenario would be to, the only thing that's going to be changing is the walkout portion, which is all rotted, and there's no post going in the ground right now. There's just basically two square nails right into the brick that's holding the walkout porch in place.
Okay, thank you for that information.
I don't know if that's too much or.
No, I think that's good. Well, we'll see if anyone has any questions for you on this then.
Sure.
Does any member have any questions? I'm not seeing any, so I just have one, and that is regarding the columns. So I noticed the columns that are currently there, the kind of rounded, and the columns that you proposed, they're like ionic columns, so they have the fluting on them. Is there any reason why you went for a difference?
Yeah, I talked to my contractor about that, and he kind of suggested the fluted columns at the bottom. And then when I started looking around the neighborhood and then doing a little bit more research into it, it's more just round columns, in my opinion, would be more appropriate.
Yeah.
Like you're right. The fluted columns are more neoclassical, and they're not really in keeping with the time that the house was built.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree with you.
Comment. That was my only comment or question of concern, is I didn't think the fluted columns really fit with the kind of Romanesque revival building. But that was my only comment.
Yeah, and I agree with that 100%.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you for your time and answering those questions. We'll now turn over to planning staff for their presentation.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm just going to provide the overview of the alterations proposed to 242 Brant Avenue. The property is located in the Brant Avenue Heritage Conservation District. It's just north of the intersection of Brant Avenue and Palmerston Avenue and St. James Street. So it's captured within the Brant Avenue designation bylaw 23988. Here's a picture of the property. This image is taken from Google Street View, and it shows the dwelling. It's two-story red brick, and the porch can be seen at the front of the dwelling at the corner. Just to provide context for the current state of the two-story porch. So these are two photos that were provided by Mr. Gazik. The porch can be seen in both photos to be pulling away from the building and sloping towards that corner post. And another image provided by the applicant shows what the base of the columns are like on the flagstone clad porch. So this is where the applicant expressed the concerns that the porch, as he indicated, was not safe based on the assessment of his contractor, and his goal is simply to replace the porch with a new two-story porch and generally keep the same style and design, keeping it consistent with what is currently there. So the applicant provided some building permit drawings. These drawings show the front and side elevations of the proposed new porch. So the side elevation is the elevation on your left, and then the right elevation shows the porch looking straight on. So focusing first on the ground floor, the applicant has indicated round wooden columns. They'll have a fluted design and they will be painted white. So staff acknowledge that these aren't sort of the more Queen Anne Revival period original columns, but the fluting design is seen on some Romanesque Revival, and Romanesque Revival fits in with that Queen Anne era. It's not an exact match, but it certainly is complementary to the character of the dwelling. So on that basis, staff were supportive of the wooden columns, and the fact that they're wood over a synthetic material further meets the guidelines to the Brent Avenue Heritage Conservation District study. Remaining on the ground floor, the applicant mentioned the existing front porch step or stoop. Right now it is flagstones clad over concrete. The concerns raised by the applicant regarding the foundation require a new stoop be poured and proper foundation for the second floor of the porch. So the applicant is proposing a stamped concrete stoop with a flagstone design stamped into the concrete, at which point that will match the existing flagstone porch and the existing flagstone walkway. So overall, staff feel that it will blend the design of the walkway and the porch and unify the view of the entrance of the house, keeping the existing character. On the second floor of second story of the porch, the applicant is proposing to have a combination half wall and railing and half post. The post will match the ground floor, so it'll be a wooden column round with fluted design, and it will be painted white as well. For the half wall, the applicant is proposing to use a siding with a cedar shake design. While the siding is a synthetic material, the cedar shake will emphasize the porch roof and the half wall, and it will be used in a way that is similar to the traditional cedar shake material. It'll also be a different color from the bulk of the porch. It'll be a dark gray, so it'll provide a nice contrast and meet the two-tone color scheme recommendations of the district guidelines. The applicant indicated that they would be looking to retain any architectural details until the removal starts, and they require the heritage permit approval to start removal and demolition. They really can't be sure how many of the brackets and other trim pieces can be salvaged. So staff have considered the design of the porch as proposed by the applicant and feel that it is sympathetic to the dwelling and it complements the architecture of the dwelling, and accordingly, staff recommend approval of the alteration. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, thanks, Patrick. Any questions for Patrick on this? Okay, seeing none. We have a recommendation before us that this be approved. Do I have a mover and a seconder of such motion? Moved by Jamie, a seconder. Sarah Clark, okay. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Hands down. All those opposed? I declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. We will now move on to item 4.2, which is the Heritage Impact Assessment Addendum for 32 Bridge Street. I'd like to call upon Andrew Neal from ANC and Odette Gomes from IBI Group. If you want to provide an update and presentation to the committee, you have 10 minutes to do so. We'll just get them into the meeting.
Hi there. We don't have a real formal presentation for you today, so we're just here really as a follow-up to the last meeting. We have taken all the comments that we've received from you. We've updated the report. We've resubmitted the report. We've also provided you with elevations that were done. In the meantime, we also had a phase 1 archaeological that was done and cleared. So we're just asking for you to support the application and receive approval tonight.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Odette? Okay, I don't see any. We need a mover and a seconder to forward comments, and then we will get that on the floor, and then we will ask if there's any comments. So do I have a mover for comments? Suzanne, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Anne-Marie, thank you. Any comments that the committee members would like to make regarding this proposal? Okay, I don't see any. So we will then move that no comments be forwarded on this. Any questions on that then before we vote?
Sorry,
Okay.
I had a connection. I just joined back in here.
Oh, sorry. So we've received no questions and we have no comments had, and that's what we're voting on. Okay, Andrew?
Sounds great.
Sarah, do you want to say something first?
Comment type thing. So I am looking at the revised report. Some of the concerns that I had about the fact that it doesn't seem that the report that the surrounding heritage, the impacts of how that will be affected by this development. Still, now maybe it's just because I'm not looking in the right spot, but I'm not finding it. I found that there were, a concept drawing and a concept photo that was there, but there was absolutely no analysis. But my comment will be that maybe that's the consultant, and I'll leave it at that. I think it might be just the vagaries of consultancy and not necessarily something that should hold up the development application, I guess.
Okay. Any other comments then? So I don't know, were you asking to add that comment in?
Well, just the fact that when we had this report come through the first time, it's a heritage impact assessment. So it's assessing the impact of the surrounding heritage as well as the heritage that could have been on the property, which we know is a parking lot. So my concern is that in the original report, there were no concept drawings or some sort of scale drawings for the proposed development that the consultant could have used to evaluate the impacts that building will have on the surrounding heritage. I'm still not seeing that, but I did see an image of that in the report. I could just be missing it if someone wanted to draw my attention to where that is. But aside from that, I have no further comments. So really, I feel like this assessment itself is missing something. But that's my opinion, I guess. It's my comment. I don't think it has any impact necessarily on it. I think that everything is very well documented within the report, but the actual assessment, the impacts are not assessed in this report. The impact of the proposed development.
So your comment, if I'm understanding correctly, then your comment would be that the heritage impact assessment does not, can you repeat what you said there at the end? Does not
Assess the impacts of the proposed development on the surrounding heritage attributes that have been identified inside, or still heritage resources that have been identified in that. So I think it lists a whole bunch of properties and it talks about them, but I couldn't, maybe it's just me that I'm not reading it properly, but I don't see how the development with the concept plan will, what impacts may result as to the surrounding neighborhood as a result of that development.
Oh, okay, thank you. So we have that comment. Melanie, did you capture that?
just got it up on the screen there. I just want to make sure I understood. Please let me know if the wording needs to be changed there, Sarah.
Just more so that, yeah, it does not assess the impact of the development.
On the surrounding neighborhood, you still wanted that in there, right?
Surrounding neighborhood, or I think she might refer to them, I think they're referred to as, built heritage resources in the report, like things like, there's a review of 11 West Street and all those other things, and that's great, and the history is great, but how will this development positively or negatively impact the existing buildings in that area?
So built heritage structures.
Yeah, I think built heritage resources was probably
Okay.
good.
Okay, so it's up there on the screen now, so everyone's kind of clear there. Do we have any further questions about this or debate on that motion then from any of the members? Can Melanie, can you switch back to the everyone screen? I don't know if I can do that. So any questions there with Sarah's comment? That's what I'm looking for. Ed? Yeah, go ahead. After you've unmuted yourself.
I think I'm
There you
good.
go.
A couple of those points that you just raised, Sarah, I mean, I just looked up, I didn't have a clue what this property was. I just Googled it. And there actually is a whole website for this development and a brochure. And ironically, the brochure actually talks to some of these points about the design that they want to put into the building and how it kind of fits into the neighborhood. But none of that is in the formal report. So I don't know if that actually counts in any of this, but I mean, I don't even know if it's our role to approve what the design thinking is here. But if you wanted to look that up, that's where you could find something more than what's officially in the report. Yeah.
If I could quickly speak to that, Nathan. Yeah, my concern is not about the development itself or the website that may be there. It's the fact that the developers hired a consultant to provide a report for the checklist of what needs to happen for development. And it's great that it could be on the website, but the report itself is a heritage impact assessment. So in that sense, it is supposed to be assessing the impact to the surrounding heritage attributes in the neighborhood. And I don't see that it does that, but I don't know that that is the fault of our developer. It's just maybe something about the vagaries of heritage reporting. Maybe the fact that there aren't actual, I don't know, maybe the city doesn't have standard terms as to how these develop or how these reports are supposed to be done. I'm not sure. It just seems that this one in particular, it's a really great research report that is not assessing the impacts of that development, but I'm not against any of it. I'm just a comment, just a comment on the whole thing. Okay.
So we have that one comment and we have it captured, so we can vote on that. If you're concerned about that comment, you could always vote against it, and then we could have another motion with just no comments provided. Okay. So for the time being, we are going to vote on Sarah's one comment then that we received. Is there any other questions or about that before I put the question to vote? Okay. So we're voting on Sarah's comment. I just want to be clear about that. Okay, all those in favor? Okay, all those opposed? Okay, I saw enough hands there. So that's carried. So thank you very much, Odette, for your time here. Okay.
Thank you.
And we'll move on to 4.3. We have a presentation about the new official plan for the city. So staff working on that project are here and will present a brief little report to us. Go ahead, Josh.
All right, so thank you, Nathan. I'll wait for Melanie to throw the presentation up for us here. So good evening, Chair and members of the Brantford Heritage Committee. My name is Joshua Scram. I'm a member of the Long Range Planning Team with the City of Brantford. Senior Planner Alan Waterfield and I are happy to be here this evening to share the latest June 2020 draft official plan with you. So next slide, please.
Joss, can you just turn yourself up a bit? For I'm having a bit of a problem hearing you if you can.
Okay. So for the presentation this evening, I'll begin by providing some background on the official plan review project, highlighting objectives and the technical background work completed as part of the municipal comprehensive review. And then from there, I'd like to provide a high-level overview of the draft official plan, looking at the general approach to this document, a brief overview of the official plan policies and the document layout, and then take a few minutes to focus in on cultural heritage policies found within section 3.4, and then lastly highlight next steps and opportunities for input on the draft document. So next slide, please. When looking at the objectives of the new official plan, this plan will replace the current official plan with updated land use policies and schedules to address the changing needs of the community. This will also incorporate the expansion lands formerly part of the County of Brant added to the city in 2017. And the official plan review process must also conform to provincial policy, including the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, which came into effect in May of 2019. And the official plan review process is also happening concurrently with other city master plan updates, which includes the transportation master plan and master servicing plan, which allows for coordination between these larger projects. Next slide, please. So looking at some of the background work, the official plan review process included a municipal comprehensive review as input to the city's new official plan. This work determined the amount of land required to accommodate projected population and employment growth outlined in the growth plan. So at a high level, it identified that 460 hectares of additional community area and 336 hectares of additional employment area would be required to meet projected growth. This background work also determined where the settlement area is to be expanded using evaluation criteria outlined on this slide here. Next slide, please. As a result of the detailed background work, this slide shows a map of the settlement area boundary expansion endorsed by council in April of 2019. So just a quick overview there. Next slide, please. So in terms of the general approach, just a few things to keep in mind when reviewing the draft OP. And that is that the key theme has really been to streamline this document. Part of it doesn't form an actual part of the OP, but it rather provides the context for which the OP was developed. So this has simply been removed. We can think of it as a filler that has just been taken out. We've also taken the approach to reference, but not to duplicate other policies and guidance documents. This is another important element to keep in mind. So we reference the Planning Act, for example, but we don't quote it. Some of the key city documents we reference are the Brantford-Brant Housing Stability Plan, the Economic Development Strategy, the Cultural Plan, the Urban Design Manual, the Design and Construction Manuals, the Climate Change Action Plan, the Source Water Protection Plan, the Transportation Master Plan, and the Master Servicing Plan. Over time, the OP has become a very prescriptive document. So this OP represents a kind of a back to basics approach, in that the OP is a framework to guide growth. And for example, we'll defer to the zoning bylaw to define the specific locations for more detailed uses and built form. And I think ultimately our hope is that this will become a much more user-friendly document and ideally reduce the need for minor official plan amendments and concurrent official plan and zoning bylaw amendments to address minor matters. Next slide, please. So when looking at the layout of the official plan and related policies, I wanted to walk you through the document showing you how it all fits together. Starting with the introduction, the vision and guiding principles, it really outlines the purpose of the document, its interpretation, and the vision and principles the city wishes to aspire to. And then getting into the next section on successful communities, this section looks at policies for providing housing opportunities, promoting strong and healthy economies, ensuring good urban design, protecting cultural heritage resources, promoting sustainable development, and adapting to climate change. Then we get into sections on growth management. This was highlighted when we talked about some of the background technical work and growth plan conformity. And then we get into land use designations. So planning staff have worked hard to efficiently consolidate 15 land use designations down to 9. And in that process, adding the agricultural designation, recognizing it as a new land use within the expansion lands. Then we get into site and area specific policies, and then transportation and servicing infrastructure. So these sections really highlight a lot of the detailed work coming out of the master servicing plan and transportation master plan. And then we have the implementation section. So while we could dive into the overall official plan documents and policies a lot further, and I would encourage you to review these when you have time, Alan and I are really here this evening to discuss with you policies related to cultural heritage resources found within the official plan. So we could go to the next slide. So turning your attention to section 3.4 in the draft OP, protecting cultural heritage resources. This section of the draft provides policies intended to manage, conserve, and protect cultural heritage resources. As mentioned previously, in this new official plan, the focus is not to duplicate other policies, but to acknowledge them. So this includes the Ontario Heritage Act, the Planning Act, and other enabling legislation the city may use in designating various heritage resources, such as individual properties or groups of properties, whole or specific parts of buildings and structures, heritage conservation districts, cultural heritage landscapes and scenic heritage roads, and areas of archaeological potential. So next section of the official plan highlights methods for conservation of cultural heritage resources. So this includes designation, listing a property on a heritage registry, heritage conservation easements, and incentives to assist with conservation as well. Now, when looking at new development, the draft official plan provides the policy direction that heritage impact assessments are required to ensure new development has regard for designated resources. So this relates to development on site or adjacent to identified or action that an HIA may be required where heritage resources are identified through the development process as well. And in addition, the Heritage Act requires the official plan contain policies to study and designate heritage conservation districts. So these policies have been included within this section to allow the continued opportunity to study and designate heritage conservation districts throughout the city of Brantford. So when looking at these types of policies, the OP really sets the stage for this work to be completed. And these tools are in place to allow continued opportunity to explore heritage resources within the city through additional studies and plans. Next slide, please. Within section 3.4, this plan also considers archaeological resources and their protection through archaeological assessments and resulting conservation plans. And the opportunity to update the master plan of archaeological resources alongside the 10-year review of the official plan. The plan also recognizes the continued opportunity to notify the Six Nations of the Grand River and the Mississaugas of the First Credit Nations on updates to the master plan of archaeological resources and archaeological assessments or reports. Next slide, please. Lastly, I just wanted to recap kind of next steps and input opportunities. So as you may or may not know, as of June 30th, the draft official plan was released for public and agency review and commenting over the summer months. So comments are due Friday, August 28th. And I look at that date and I think I don't know where the summer has gone, but in addition to that, draft companion documents were also released, including the urban design manual, the terms of reference for the block plan process, and the infrastructure staging report. So just to kind of recap an overall timeline, looking at a revised draft official plan to be released in the fall, and then kind of zoning in on the November 2020 timeline, a finalized draft official plan to be presented at a public open house, council adoption anticipated at a November 17th public meeting, and then the council adopted official plan would then be sent to the province for final approval. In terms of another exciting upcoming project, the official plan review process will be followed by the new citywide zoning bylaw project. And then just to finish, drawing your attention to the master servicing plan and transportation master plan, really encourage you to check out both these projects at the links provided. So then on the last slide, I just wanted to provide a little bit more information on Alan and myself, points of contact for each of us, and then a link to the official plan review the official plan review page. So thanks for that quick presentation. I do appreciate the chair and committee's time this evening.
Great, thanks for that presentation, Josh. Does anyone have any questions for Josh about the official plan? Dan. Councilor McCurry, sorry.
That's okay. I'm happy to answer to Dan. Thank you for the presentation. Earlier, I believe it was Sarah expressed a concern about the format for the HIA. Is it possible for us to include within the plan coming forward a template for the HIAs that applicants would have to complete?
Josh?
I can take that one. Hello, everyone. Alan here. Sorry to jump in on you, Josh, there. But yeah, as far as a template, what would need to go into the heritage impact assessment, those types of details would be outlined in a terms of reference for such studies that we would create. So it wouldn't technically form part of the official plan. It would be a supplementary document that people would be able to refer to have a clear understanding of what the city's expectations are in regard to what goes into a heritage impact assessment. The official plan gives us the authority when reviewing development applications to ask for them, but it wouldn't be embedded within the document itself. That way we've got greater flexibility to change it as time goes on if we think we need to change those terms moving forward.
Thanks, Alan. So would it be your plan then to produce such a supplementary document?
I can just add there, Councillor McCreary. Staff is actually currently working on a terms of reference. So that's Patrick and I are working on that, and we will be as well. Yeah, so sorry, it won't be part of the official plan, but as Alan said, it will support that and will outline those types of requirements so that applicants know exactly what staff is and the committee is looking for when we ask for a heritage impact assessment.
That's super, Victoria. Will that come? Will that come during this year?
That is the plan right now, is to finish that before the end of this year. Yeah.
And so that'll come to the committee for comment?
That's correct.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Any other questions from the committee? Ed, go ahead.
Just one quick question on demographics. This is like 4.1, just talking about population. Do we build in any analysis in terms of like the demographic breakdown in terms of number of seniors versus youth in Brantford, or is it just numbers of people living here? Any idea?
Our land needs are based on the population and employment projections that are set by the province. And we have to, through the growth plan, implement those. It's actually been a challenge for us during this process because the province keeps making amendments to the growth plan. And they've actually just released another one back in the middle of June. And the impact of that is it's going to require us to extend the planning horizon of the whole document from 2041 out to 2051. And they've released some draft updated forecasts of population and employment out to that time frame. So we're going to be challenged to make some revisions to accommodate that pending amendment. And our timeline is really dependent on when that amendment comes into effect. But to get back to the crux of your question about, whether we just look at population or the breakdown of the population, certainly we're planning to accommodate the full spectrum, the 8 to 80 concept of planning for everyone within the community and making sure that the official plan is providing opportunities and not precluding opportunity for people to develop all sorts of types of housing throughout the city.
Okay, thanks, Alan. Did that clear up your question there or concern, Ed?
Oh, sort of. I'll look for evidence of that. That's all. Because what concerns me is that by even say, it actually doesn't matter which decade you go out to, that half the population in Brantford don't work. There's only less than half that actually are employed. I mean, I'm seeing that already, that there's a huge population of senior people in this city, and that will grow. and they don't all want to live in 3-bedroom houses. And I guess that's what I'm just trying to find I want to look for something in there that kind of reflects that, you know, the new ways of living. You know, I mean, I'm used to living in other cities where it was really common to have 1 and 2 bedroom kind of units in among something like a Henderson survey, where then all of a sudden the next one would be 4 or 5 1-bedroom places or 2-bedroom places, and you got a lot of elderly living there. And my gut feeling is that this is the kind of thing that we need to start thinking a lot more about, like a bigger mix of things, because again, we're growing so fast. So I'll look for that as I read through this. That's all.
Yeah. Well, and the policies and the zoning that will follow will be accommodating what the province is now calling additional residential units. So those will be permitted throughout the city, and that's where you find things like the granny flats or you know, basement apartments that someone might add a additional dwelling unit into their home. So there'll be much broader permission for that to occur throughout the city than it may have occurred in the past based on, you know, previous zoning regimes. So again, there will be much greater flexibility for more variety and diversity within both new neighborhoods and existing ones as well. So we do want to get away from the, you know, endless tracts of just exclusively single detached dwelling.
Okay, thanks, Alan. Any other member have any questions for Josh or Alan? Just want to swipe through my screens, make sure I'm not missing anyone. Okay, I have a couple questions then. So I was going to pick up on that as well, because I attended or virtually attended the county meeting last week where they were talking about the updated projections extending until 2051. So thank you for also mentioning that, because I was a little confused when I saw the 2041 projections. With respect to heritage impact assessments, does that mean that properties on our heritage register would be asked if it's like a neighboring property to a property on our heritage register? Would that require a heritage impact assessment, or is it just the designated structures and the heritage conservation districts?
I can speak to that question. So the draft policy that's included states that a heritage impact assessment will be required when it's on a property that is an identified or designated cultural heritage resource. So an identified resource that would cover a listed property, or a property that has another heritage status through another sort of act, like a federally designated, that sort of thing. So yes, we would still be asking for an HIA, yeah.
Okay, perfect. That was just something that popped into my head when I heard their presentation. And then my other question was going to be about heritage conservation districts, because at our last meeting we had the Heritage Register report, and I made a comment in there that direction to undertake heritage conservation district studies for the areas identified in the recommendations report should be included as a priority for the city's official plan. So does that comment jive with what is embedded within your proposed official plan?
I can speak to this one. Yeah, the policies in the official plan are stating that, yes, the city can establish districts, and that we'll prepare a plan where we're establishing a district. The criteria for establishing a district is coming out of the Ontario Heritage Act and other places, so we're not repeating that. So we're really not precluding it from, or a heritage district being established anywhere in the city. And I would think it might be best for specific priorities, if you have them, for where you may want a heritage conservation district, that we wouldn't necessarily outline that in the official plan. It would probably give you more flexibility with your annual Heritage Committee priorities to identify those areas through that process, and then that can dovetail with the work plan that Victoria and Patrick put together for the for Heritage staff, and work with it that way. And you know, also in that regard, like if we were to list, say, three potential districts in the OP, and say we had two and there was one that we hadn't done, but perhaps through your priorities list you thought, oh, maybe some other area would be more appropriate, then you know, some applicant or someone might object and say, well, you can't do it here, you're supposed to do that area first. So again, I think just leaving it simple as we proposed it in the draft OP, and allowing the priorities to be established through the Heritage Committee and Heritage Staff Work Plan might be the best approach to take.
Okay, so the report recommends, I think it's something like 5 heritage conservation districts potentially. So if the Heritage Committee were to have a discussion around those and prioritize those, then that work might become easier for the city to undertake. Am I understanding that correctly?
Well, I think what I'm saying is that you want to identify your priorities, and then it can be discussed with planning staff to determine, you know, when that work might be done. But I don't think it needs to be embedded in the official plan.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So we are allowed to forward comments to staff, but we need a mover and a seconder to get that on the floor. So moved by Sarah. Do I have a seconder? Jamie, thank you. So any comments about the official plan then that we want to include? Okay, I don't see any. So we'll assume that there are no comments. Sorry, Alan.
Sorry to interrupt, Nathan. I was just going to say, anyone is also free to submit comments on, you know, on personal comments that aren't necessarily from the committee. So we, for example, received some from Ed in regard to some of the earlier materials that we had provided to the community. So
yeah. Okay, great, thanks. So I'll call for a vote then on the question that no comments be forwarded. Okay, so that's what we're voting on. All those in favor? Hands down. All those opposed? I declare the motion carried. Thank you so much for your presentation, gentlemen.
Thank you very much for having us.
So that moves us on to item 5.1, which is consent items, which is minutes. So are there any errors or omissions in the minutes that need to be corrected? And I would entertain a mover for minutes. Susan, you were there last meeting, and a seconder. Sarah Clark, thank you. Any other discussion or any errors and omissions that need to be fixed? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Okay, hands down. All those opposed? I declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Projects and other updates. 6.1, this is kind of just a reminder that each year we establish Heritage Committee priorities. And it was suggested that we put this on the agenda for this meeting to remind people that we can discuss this in September and come forward with a series of priorities for the coming year. So if anyone has any priorities that they would like to potentially add, I would ask that they think about them, maybe send me an email to let me know about them, and then we can discuss those at the September meeting. I think I covered that properly. So on to item 7, which is subcommittee updates. As we discussed at our last meeting, subcommittees are not currently meeting, so we don't really have any updates from those. There are no resolutions and no notices of motion. So I thank you for your time this evening and joining us on this hot summer night. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Anne Marie. Thank you all for your time. I really appreciate it. Everyone have a good night.